There wasn't many great generals in the South, but one stood out among the rest, and his name was Robert Edward Lee. And though he lost more than he actually won in battle, people still think he's a great leader. And this is how his life was to turn out. He started off as some engineer, but shined as a leader in front of his higher ranking members, making him popular among the military. His first war was in the Mexican-American War. He didn't do much to change the battle, but still proved to be excellent in fighting and strategically planning. He fought in many battles and was promoted to brigade major at the Battle of Cerro Gordo. Whatever. Ironically, both Lee and Grant spent time in the war together, both showing off how good they were, and didn't meet again until the Civil War, only to be on opposite sides.
During the Second Battle of Bull Run, Lee and his leadership skills shined. He not only won the battle, but he was outnumbered by 62,000 to 50,000. This battle took 3 whole days. That's 72 hours with bathroom breaks and sleeping breaks of non-stop battle. It's a wonder they didn't just give up and leave it at a stalemate. But Lee, with his determination and leadership skills, he only lost 1,300 men, while the Union lost 10,000 men. 10,000? That's kind of surprising because the Confederates were outnumbered by 12,000 men. That might not seem like a large number by me saying it over a recording and on this PowerPoint, but that's a huge disadvantage if you think about it. And they only lost 1,300 men. It's a clear show of the South's determination in the early part of the war to keep their slaves and keep their economy alive.
Many know the Battle of Gettysburg as the turning point of the war. This took place in Gettysburg during the American Civil War. General Robert E. Lee was the general who led the battle for the South. Them, being confident in their skill after their previous victories in said war, got a little too confident and flung absolutely everything they had at the North in order to win. While there were immense casualties for both sides, the North had beat the South by measly casualties, resulting in the turning point of the war. This proved to be a devastating blow to the South and handed first place over to the Union, where they were far ahead of the South. Lee's inability to follow tactics and the fact that he relied mainly on being aggressive to win proved to be a downfall here, where they were quickly stopped right in their tracks by the North.
Here we stand, Battle of Appomattox Courthouse, fought on the morning of April 9, 1865. It was one of the last battles of the American Civil War. It was the final engagement of Confederate Army General Robert E. Lee. He was the general of Army of Northern Virginia before it was surrendered to Union Army under Lieutenant General Ulysses Grant. Lee, having abandoned the Confederate capital of Richmond, Virginia, after 10 months of siege of Petersburg, retreated west, hoping to join his army, the Confederate forces in North Carolina. Union persuaded and cut off the Confederate retreat at the village of Appomattox Courthouse. Lee launched an attack, breaking through the Union forces to front, assuming that they had nothing but weak soldiers. When he realized they had whole infantry of soldiers, he had no choice but to surrender. The signing of the surrender documents occurred in the parlor of the house owned by William McLean on the afternoon of April 9th on April 12th. A formal ceremony of the marked the disbandment of the Army of North Virginia.
After the war, Lee went to Lexington, Virginia, and after some time, he became the president of Washington College, now known today as Washington and Lee University. He applied to have his citizenship restored after the war, but the application was misled. It was founded in 1970 and granted. He died in Lexington of a heart disease on October 12, 1870. His last words were said to have been, "Strike the tent." This has been Robert E. Lee's history with Mark, Garrett, Amir, Karan, and Danny.